Hello, welcome to Actual Play Traveler Moons of Leviathan. I'm Sean Nittner. I use he, him pronouns, and I am playing Alexandros, Alexei, Lex, and the now disgraced Marquis, turned pirate, turned uh, time refugee, and who's returned back to his own time, but things have changed. Last time we left off, the monk who was in charge of his temporal restoration wanted to see if there was much spillage, and I just flat out did not tell him that in my timeline, the timeline that I remembered, my sister was not alive and that we were not at war anymore. So yeah, just sort of trying to roll with those punches. Don't really know what any of that means yet. Just found out that everything's changed at the end of the last session. So super excited to find out, have Alexei have these moments of shock and awe as he revisits the same new world, but all new again. As usual, well, on the channel, all the proceeds that we receive are split between Black Lives Matter and the Trans Legal and Education Defense and Education Fund. So if you give us monies with subscriptions or cheers, that's where it'll go. We really appreciate anything you do. But just being here makes us real happy too. So thanks for hanging out with us in chat. That's my spiel. How about you, Judd? What's going on with you?
I've got a new setup. I've got the kind of mic in my face a little bit, and my keyboards are different. And I'm using my an extra computer for my notes and Roll20, and then a different computer and then my like regular computer that I usually just pile everything on for just StreamYard. So I'm like trying to figure out. I mean, it doesn't look different from last time. Clearly, it's the same books behind me in the same
Yeah,
room, but like everything around the camera is kind of different. So yeah, I'm kind of trying to figure it out. If I bring my water bottle into a mic or something, you'll know why. It's because or knock a mic off and you have to hear all the clump 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 as it falls. Uh, you'll know that it's because I was trying to play around with how this thing works. But I'm doing all right. I had a busy, hectic week, but I'm glad to be through it. And
good. I'm glad. I'm happy for you to be
yeah,
able
things are
to.
going all
That's
right.
one nice thing about playing on Fridays is we get to go. That was a I mean, playing on Fridays with two people who work a Monday through Friday job is
Yeah,
that we can say, yeah, that was a hellish week, but now we're done with it.
yeah. It has a different. It. I remember there was a game I used to play like on Wednesdays or Thursdays, and we played like on a Saturday morning once, and it changed everything about the game. It just
Yeah,
suddenly just had a totally different vibe, and yeah, I think having a Friday night game is very different. It gives it a different feel. Yeah, definitely, kind of a celebratory. Uh,
yeah. Just
yeah,
we don't have to get up early tomorrow and go back to yeah.
right, right.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
I think there were a number of things at the end of the last session that had come as ramifications for the changes that I made. And the
right.
two that I remember specifically was your sister and brother are waiting for you. So that was a huge deal. And
Yeah.
also the war with Troy. Well, I don't even know if it's the war with Troy. I don't actually know what war it is. I presume
Oh,
it's the same war that
yeah.
I was part of, but you know, the war it continues.
Yeah.
Were there any other like major things that I'm
The other thing is that Ithaca Station was not in the sky.
Oh right.
Yeah, like there
Yeah,
were
I
three
looked
big
up.
changes. Yeah,
I looked up where it should have been, and it was not there. Yeah, was Ithaca Station destroyed? Is it out of orbit? Yeah. Oh, good stuff.
yeah, and all because you failed a bunch of psionics rolls and ended up 10,000 years in the future. Um, but not before you talked to your brother uh,
I
and
talked to
talked
my
to your sister.
I talked to myself as well.
Oh no, you talked to yourself and talked to your sister. That's right. You
Yeah,
did not
yeah.
talk to your
I did
brother.
not talk to my brother, but I
Yeah,
talked to myself about how much longer the
right,
world was going to be to a younger self who had been was visiting my wounded captain um,
right.
in Messina.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, so like first you move through time, and then you move through time and space, and then you just move through time again, but a lot of time.
a lot
And
of time.
yeah, it was cool. I don't know. I people say time travel is a big mess in role playing games, but I don't know. I think it's kind of cool. I think it's fun. Uh,
I
don't
think,
don't force it to make a whole lot of sense. I think
yeah.
is the thing.
Well, I also think there's something to say for time travel. Uh, if you're if you play in a game where causality and the status quo is really really important
Mm,
because you've established a lot, like we're playing Kingmaker and I spent the last 20 sessions trying to build up our town and I've done all this
right.
work, and then someone is like, well, I've decided that none of that work counts and the time
Yeah.
travel that you did destroys
Yeah.
it. I can see that being enormously frustrating and also cause people to be like, wait, I want to know how everything happens so that I get the full understanding in a sort of exhausting way.
Yeah.
I feel like we sort of hold on, but lightly.
Right.
We hold on to things like I'm really invested in this, but I'm also okay with it changing.
Yeah.
That I'm not like, oh no, Ithaca Station is gone, the game isn't fun for me anymore, or the war isn't over, the game's like none
Yeah.
of those
Yeah.
things make it so that we're suddenly like having to be super super accountable because those things need explanations.
Right.
So
That makes
yeah,
sense. And I feel like a lot of this game has been you, the player Sean, pushing a lot of the stuff that Alexi has either away or into conflict in a way that says, hey, if I lose this, I lose it. Let's just throw it on the table and see how it goes. So yeah, I didn't mind. I feel like because of that, I didn't mind taking a sledgehammer to it and saying, okay, everything's different now,
yeah,
and that's cool. And yeah, you're right. If it was a game where you were building a lot of things and we had spent 20 sessions, building a castle or whatever it was, or building, delicate alliances, then it would be frustrating,
yeah.
or it
The
could be
other,
frustrating.
the other thing is we have the advantage of being a single player is that if I think about Back to the Future, everything centers around Marty McFly, and
Totally.
so the world can just be like totally askew because Back to the Future is clearly the reference. I call it one because I love the movie, but two because it has the single timeline paradigm that we are invoking rather than
Right,
the
right.
multiverse or whatnot.
Oh, that's
And
interesting. Yeah.
so Marty can screw everything up, but we're always seeing it from the perspective of Marty, so it's fine. It's not messing up other PCs stuff, right? Like I'm not getting.
Right.
I'm a co-player who's like, what you just.
I just recently saw a College Humor thing about Back to the Future that both cracked me up and made me realize how messed up, like how we just took that movie at face value in the 80s and just didn't question anything
Yeah.
about like how weird it was that this dude's mom was hitting on him the whole movie. And yeah, anyway.
I like to say that Back to the Future it doesn't have the issue that it aged poorly because the warts that it has were warts back then. Like it
Right,
had issues from the get go, and they
right,
haven't changed
right.
really. Um,
There's a really funny College Humor video where Marty, you know, it goes back to that scene where his mom hits on him, and then like the next scene is Doc saying, "You slept with your mom, Marty? How could you do that?" And then he's like, "You have to go back in time and stop yourself." And so they send him back in time again, and then he comes back. It slam cuts to Doc being like, you had a 3-way with yourself and your mom, Marty? How could you do that? You've destroyed the time continuum, and then it just kept upping the ante and just being like, oh no, we're not backing away from this. How terrible this movie is. So anyway, that's definitely where we wanted this intro to go, is
Yeah.
talking about how perverse that fucking movie was.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was weird, and it felt like, now that I think about it, if I was going to write a paper on that movie, it would be that the second movie and the third one were like, hey, please forget that first one was so weird.
Yeah.
We're going to try to do everything we can to make you forget about that. And to the point where like Doc has this very, science fiction white picket fence ending where he like gets married and has kids, and like it's just so proper, and it's like, forget about that weird stuff from the first movie. Like Doc finds a school marm and settles down in the time stream, and it's totally cool. And can we just forget about the first movie, please?
Yeah.
Which is the best movie of the lot. Like the second, the 2 and 3 sucked. So
Well,
anyway,
I loved 3 because it was in the Wild West and it was just stupid and ridiculous.
yeah,
But I really felt like 2 was just the setup for 3. 2 was
right,
just trying to lob the ball up for 3. So like,
right,
yeah,
very true. I need to. Not need to. I wouldn't say I need to. I on a weekend when Johnny Key is out of town, I should watch those all again and just I don't know, live tweet it or take notes or something, because it really is a hot mess of a movie, and it
oh
is
yeah,
embedded in our science fiction consciousness in a way that it doesn't get credit for, I think. And um yeah, I mean, clearly, yeah, I like it's so embedded that like when we had some time travel thing, it was like, oh, this is like a Back to the Future time travel where there's
right,
one
right, right.
timeline
Yeah,
that can
exactly.
only get messed up, but yeah, I mean, I think it's on everyone's mind because of Loki and the Time Variance Authority,
Yeah,
which kind of came up in chat. It's like, oh, are we going to separate timelines? And I was like, I don't want to do that. So
yeah.
yeah, it's a weird
Well,
thing.
and for me also the what if episodes. Speaking of
Oh,
Marvel
totally.
episodes, the what if episodes have been just really fun to play with. Marvel just being like the most brave thing about him is that those episodes are just like the good guy doesn't have to win, the right thing doesn't have to happen,
Right.
people don't have to be their best selves. Like
Right.
some people can be their best selves, and stuff can still be terrible. And yeah, it's really just like, oh, what if Stephen Strange just really went dark? Yeah, okay, that'd be awful.
Right.
So
Right.
I don't know. I like that. But
No,
we
no,
should.
I love that. I mean, if I was going to, yeah, it also makes me lament that the Marvel heroic role playing game like didn't just keep churning out shit when it was coming out, because like all of the MCU stuff that's been out since then would have been amazing, but like a what if book of like, hey, this is how you what if the hell out of things, and make one, that'd be the what if model would be a great way to play the Marvel heroic game, because you can play uh,
Mhm.
Spider-Man but have your own little take on him,
Yep. Yep.
so
Well, and
fun.
that's also like, uh, I think a great way to stake your claim in a setting.
Yeah.
I seem to remember an old podcast of yore
Yeah.
about the children, the male progeny of a dragon named Cryos.
Yes. Yes.
I think something you're just like Elminster's dead, right?
Yep.
Like
Yep.
you just removed him from the setting so that you could claim Forgotten Realms as yours
Yes.
rather than having to dance around canon.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that was when Jeff was running a Forgotten Realms game, and everybody had read all the novels but him, and he was like, well, he had read a bunch of the Drit stuff,
yeah,
and he was like, but everybody's really like has bought all the books since then, and I haven't. I've read some of the. He had read a bunch of the novels, but there were people who were really like into it, and he was like, I need to make this my own. And I was like, oh, I got an idea. we
Yeah.
would kind of email back and forth about our prospective games and get advice from each other, which was cool. And kind of before we were big into the forum culture, and yeah, it's an important thing to just kind of make a world your own and feel comfortable kicking it in the teeth. It's
Yeah.
a it's a big deal.
So let's do
Speaking of
some
which,
drop kicks here and
yeah,
see what
yeah,
happens in Orbital Leviathan.
yeah,
Oh,
you
another
bet.
fun element from the last session. I'm tangenting, but I feel less like I'm digressing because it's
Yeah,
related to the game. Was that it was took place in the fifth age, and we are in the second age now. And in the time of the fifth age, there was a giant Dyson sphere around Leviathan, and
yeah,
it had been not contained, but like channeled, tamed. They tried to contain it in the third age, and that went real bad. And
yeah,
it just
yeah,
it was just fun to see, you know, hugely pivotal changes over that time.
yep,
So
yep. I also another weird thing that I did in that game that I liked is in describing the people from the 10,000 year in the future
yes,
era. I said they don't have any of the gender or class markers that come from your time, so you have no idea who they are here or what their status is
yeah,
or what they identify as or what, because their clothes just look kind of plain and strange to you, and it just doesn't make a lot of, like, the colors don't make a lot of sense, and um, yeah, I liked that. Was a neat thing to
yeah.
to
I really appreciated that notion that, like, no, the you know the hegemony, the patriarchy, the gender norms and standards that I knew, that I was accustomed to, did not survive 10,000 years.
right.
10,000 years later, they had changed. They're not familiar. They don't lean on the what we expect. Yeah.
Yep, yep, that was fun. Cool. Let's um so it ended with you going out to meet your sister.
Yeah, I think they were coming to pick me up because I had been in this ward, but not for any like significant amount of, not because of the time trial. Well, it's hard to say. Who knows how much changed? But I had been in this ward for some time before I did this temporal deviation, and then when I came back, it was in the same moment. But I don't really know like how long I've been there now in this new version. But anyway,
Right.
I was in the hospital in Messina, and yeah, they were coming to pick me up. I mean, I think I was really trying to keep my cool around the monk, so I did not let loose like how much slippage I had seen. But
Right.
I imagine that when Alexei is walking out of his hospital room to like go meet his family, it starts as like a slow, calm walk, and eventually like picks up speed to the point where by the time he busts into the waiting room or whatnot, he's like running, with excitement, because
Yeah.
he's just been like trying to like be cool, be cool, be cool, be cool. But I don't think he can hold on to that. And
Yeah.
so I like burst out into like wherever the waiting room, wherever I think they're gonna see me. Um, and then yeah, like scan the room to look for my brother and sister, who I hope I will recognize. Um,
Right. And I also think, I picture, tell me if you disagree or if you've got another take on this. But I imagine Alexei looking a bit like he just came off of, like, in if this was in the 18th century, he would have been just getting off of an island that he was stranded on. So like his hair is a little long and he's got a bit of a beard, and he looks like, he was stranded on a desert island
yeah, I mean,
a
if we
little bit.
follow the like prime timeline, up until when I started doing this deviation. Yeah, I've been traveling for for a couple days, not a huge amount of time, but I had certainly been look probably getting kind of rough and ready over the many months that I spent with the Pirates. I was probably not keeping myself in a good shape, but then yeah, we crash landed, we tromped through the jungle. Yeah, I think he looks worse for wear.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and he's
And yeah, I
probably
think
had all sorts of
he's
needles and whatnot injected in him, to
right.
all that jazz too. So
Right. Yeah. Um, yeah, I think your sister is aboard your old ship, the Chimera, and I think when the crew opens the gates for you and stands at attention, um, and when you come to meet her, she is on the bridge, uh, leaning against a rail, looking up at the Leviathan, kind of the light of the Leviathan, and I think she doesn't even notice you coming in.
oh yeah, I mean she's probably gonna hear me because um, I think I get into like the waiting room and she's not there, and they're like, oh, she's out front, and I like run out and I see she's in the spaceport, because the Chimera is docked, and I'm like, you know, by the time I get to her, I've probably been running. I'm not fully recovered anyway. So I'm like out of breath and I'm panting and I'm like loping my way. And by the time I think when I finally see her, I get another like burst of energy, a sort of a second wind. But I'm like gasping probably for air because I've just been like sprinting this whole way. Um, and I just run into her and just crack. Like I think I freeze for a moment when I first see her, and then charge into her and just crash into her and give her like this huge hug. And
Yeah,
which is probably it's not really like Alexei, but he's seeing a ghost.
right.
And she's alive, and like fuck all of protocol because he can't believe his sister is there.
Yeah, and she hugs you back and says to the crew, says to one of her lieutenants, "You've got the bridge. I'm going to sit down with my brother in the captain's quarters." And she uh, walks you into the bridge and looks at you carefully and says, "Do you remember coming to talk to me?"
And I think he's kind of like I'm almost like in a fugue state because like as she's looking at me carefully, like I'm looking at her just like not carefully. It's like just trying to take it all in. Like I'm not
Yeah,
picking any details. It's just like wonderment that she's there, and I'm just sort of like wide eyed. And then when she says that, like I think I kind of snap to a little bit, and I actually look at her. Like I'm not just like oh my god, it's you. I really look at her in the eyes, and I say yes, and I kind of look, circumspectly around and make sure there's no time spillage cops. Make sure that we're alone. And I say, yes, it was as if it was moments ago. Well, that's not true. I spent a lot of time,
yeah.
but yes, I remember it. It was if it was moments ago for me.
It's it's been some years, but I never brought it up around you. You didn't have the same look that you have now. I guess the triggering event was crashing into Messina.
Yeah, yes, I had and I take her hand and I'm holding her hand and I'm like squeezing it,
Yeah,
you're like it's like in disbelief,
yeah,
and I say, sit with me, and and like I like sit near the and
yeah,
I sit down with her and I say, we can't tell this to anyone, but And I think I just like totally spilled the beans to her. Like I just unfiltered, regardless of whether it was right or wrong. I haven't been able to really tell this to anybody because I couldn't tell any guide or prime guide. They didn't want to know. They really wanted to isolate me from messing things up, and I certainly couldn't tell this to Teppins. So, but also I'm just so excited to see her, and so
Yeah,
yeah, I tell her about the like. I mean, I think I'm just blabbing. It's probably incoherent. It's not like all in order. It's like, oh, and this, but before that was this. Like, it's just when someone's like so excited to tell you something, they can't even get it straight. Like, I'm just
right.
like struggling to like capture all the details and getting it all out of order. And I want and my hope is that it's a light bulb moment for her and it clicks for her. But I can also imagine it like there's something I'm missing. Um,
Yeah,
and like what's happened since. Um, I think maybe I should read a person because it's
cool.
not like I'm scrutinizing her, but like I definitely want to know like, well, what's
Yeah, yeah,
happening
yeah.
with you?
Yeah. You can read a person, read a sitch, I think whichever. But if you read a person is your instinct, let's go for it.
That's my instinct because It's interesting because I'm more interested in how she's doing than like what. Like I know I should really be worried about Ithaca being missing, but in the
Right.
moment, I'm more concerned with how she is. So yeah, I'm gonna read a
Awesome.
person. I'm gonna roll liaison. Um, I think that's the closest.
Yep.
I got an 8.
Cool.
8
You
is
hold
great.
two.
I believe I
You hold
get
two. So she starts pulling up data packets that she has gathered over the years, and um, you see that she's been in the time relative to her that you spoke to her and the years that have gone by since where she's lived beyond what she was supposed to have lived. uh she's done research on time travel, and she's not a temporal scientist by any stretch, but when you have an experience like that, you you look into it, and
Yeah. So she realized that the next time she saw me, I wasn't the same. She put some pieces together and realized that like it wasn't me, it was a future me that was talking to her.
yeah, oh yeah,
Yeah.
totally. She realized right away like that it wasn't it that yeah, it was a future you, and that it was a you that hadn't manifested yet,
Yeah.
and like she was keeping an eye on you, to see. And yeah, to see if it was ever you, because you did have that look. um you had your face changed. Your
Yeah.
face changed after the seizures. So she
Mhm.
was like waiting for that look to be on your
Oh,
face.
right, right. My eyes all has this red corona around it from
Yeah.
the seizure. Yeah.
So she's been waiting for that, and now that she sees it, she knows that it's you.
Yeah.
And she says there are science nuns who believe that the Leviathan has an effect on temporal manipulation.
Yeah, I don't feel like and this is just like Sean making this up, but I think it's true. I don't feel like I could leave the Leviathan. I felt like it had a temporal sort of gravity. I could move around it just like
Right.
we orbit it, but I couldn't leave its vicinity. Not that I was trying, not that I had any control over it,
Right.
but even as much as I fumbled my way through the psionic connection to time,
Yeah.
uh, it tethered me,
Yep.
and I couldn't escape it any more than our ships can.
She said, "Yeah, that feeling is valid, and it's causing problems with me." And she shows you, uh, flight black boxes on different ships that she's been on,
Yeah.
where you know she survived the kind of epic dogfight where her ship got damaged. She got driven into the Leviathan's gravity well and lost forever. And says and then shows you other flights that she's had where the Leviathan's gravity has anomalies that try to pull her in. And she says, I think it's trying to get me.
And I think like we also have these like beautiful, these amazing bay windows here to
Right.
look at, and I sort of look at it and I say, I don't prescribe to any belief in a divine power. I mean, the engineering nuns believe in the power of math and science to save us, and I believe that there is a truth that we uncover. I follow them that far, but I don't know if none of us know if the Leviathan has a will. I mean, and again, he's totally fucking blowing it right now with regards to like temporal protocol. He's like,
Right.
in the future, they had a sense of communicating with it, not with language, but they did something that made it mad and it fought them. And I think it annihilated everybody, or it will annihilate everybody. But that's like 1,000 years from now when they try something that's a really bad idea. But then they figure it out after it and they try it again, as we do. And it
Right.
works the second time.
Right.
But it does seem to, they talked about working in cooperation with it rather than trying to contain it. And that seemed to be palatable to it.
She shakes her head and like looks out at it, and the big storm, one of the big storms that's like goes across its surface, and says, "That's crazy. It's a gas giant." And I
Yeah.
think I think there are a couple of things behind her that the Moons of Leviathan fans, or as they call them online, the Moonies,
Yep.
will notice and like get screenshots and point out. And like one is like her fighter pilot helmet, which is up like behind her captain's seat on the Chimera, in her office, and it has the words "Red Sister" stenciled on it because that was her call sign. And then the other uh, thing that stands out is a statue of a nun, and like it's kind of like the a science fiction version of that uh Lord of the Rings uh statue that's holding Isildur's blade.
Mm,
But it's holding the true sword, but it's not holding it. It's like levitating with magnets kind of
right.
above her hands. And um yeah, I just wanted to throw that in there as a little spice in the scene.
Nice.
And feel free to drop any of those questions whenever you want to, for Read Someone.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, these are so good, and I like. like I haven't wanted to ask these questions more, I think, ever than talking to her right now, because they're like, I could ask them all, and this is great. So um I think that the two big ones though that really come to me, I'm going to start with, what is it that she hopes I'll do? Like, what does she want right now? Now that, like, it feels like she's been waiting for me to
Yeah.
return, like the me. And
Yeah.
now that I'm here, like, I think she has something in mind. I think that she is more
Yeah. I
than
mean,
just like
the
has a
last
bad
time you
feeling.
showed up, you had all these answers, right? So she's hoping, on one hand, she's hoping that you'll have answers. On the other hand, she's done enough temporal, research, temporal science research to know that you were lost and winging it. And so she's kind of like, she's she's hoping that you'll tell her what she needs to do to make this right, but she
Yeah,
also is hoping that you're not too far gone and too hurt by all this.
yeah.
She's very concerned.
And
um
I say, I I promise, and I think I have. I believe I have the true sword with me now, right? I think I have the actual
you
one.
do, yeah.
Yeah. And I like take the sword and I put it down, like I set it down. And for a moment, the way I'm holding it looks like this, the way the statue is holding it, right? Like I have it
Right.
across my,
Yeah, I think like
across my hand.
when you take it out, she like kisses her fingers and touches the blade,
Yeah.
as is uh you know traditional.
And I hold it out and I say, the sword gave me the guidance that I very badly mistook. It tried to teach me a lesson that I failed to that I failed to comprehend, but in doing so, spent its charge. I believe I am incapable without it of becoming untethered again. It was a huge act of psionic will and idiocy and foolishness to lose my tethering. I don't think I will disappear again. I don't think I could disappear again if I wanted to. Um, and I certainly don't want to, because it was, I didn't have any clue what the ramifications of my actions would have had. I could claim innocence the first time I do it, but I can't now. I don't. I need to. We need to make right whatever we're going to make right now, today, and
Right.
you're alive, and that's all I could ever ask for. And that's where we start. Is is the family sticking together, and and so if we need to find out why the Leviathan is trying to reclaim you and how to appease it, I don't know that answer, but we'll find it. There are many people who have studied the Leviathan, and there's there's a lot of lore that I'm sure you've gathered, and I'm sure there's more we can discern. How who have you shared this with? Who have you told about this? Who have you
She says,
told?
she shakes her head and she says, once I learned about the church law about temporal tampering, I told no one.
That's smart. I did not reveal to the church the changes that I had made. I don't know what they would have done if I had, but I'm not willing to undo them, even if I could. I don't think I could if I wanted to.
Maybe we need to charge the sword.
We could talk to it if we did. Um,
When
where's our home?
we she kind of like, you know, pulls herself together to talk
Yeah.
about it and says, "We're a small fleet of ships that used to dock at Ithaca Station. We're hoping that when we win the war, we can either take a station from one of the trader families or use their resources to build a new Ithaca."
So Ithaca was destroyed.
Its orbit decayed, and there was a battle, and it caused a further decay, and Leviathan took it.
How long has it been gone?
About a year. And I think, yeah, I mean, feel free to, ask any questions you want. But when you say, how long has it been gone? She looks at you like, how the fuck can you ask that? Right. Like it's dawning on her how very little you know. And,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and she says, "Are you ready to go back into active duty?" That's what our brother wants.
Active duty to win the war. And I just like shake my head and I'm just, I've been so elated this whole time because I've been just happy that she's alive. But
Right.
I think all these things are dawning on Alexis right now. Like, this is a war I've already won one. Oh, I haven't, but we've already won once.
Yeah.
And it was freaking terrible. And now I have to go back and do it again. And also, uh, I was fighting to keep that orbit stable, and I'm not saying this, but it's just like when she says the orbit decayed, I was like,
Right.
I tried to stop that, and I failed in my time, and I failed. Apparently, we failed even worse in this time.
Yep.
Um, I'm really torn between. Okay, so I want to ask a question. I don't think Alexi would ask this question uh, overtly. I think I am feeling out what she wants to do because
Yeah.
Ithaca had the charging station for the true sword.
Yeah.
So my question is, how could I get her to go with me to fly into the Leviathan to try and get to Ithaca Station uh, and charge the sword again? Right. So it's not like I say like, "Hey, you want to go do this thing that you're terrified of?" It's more that I say like, I say I look at the sword and I say, "There's only one place to recharge it, and that was our home." And I'm gauging her because the answer could be no way in hell, right?
Right.
Like it's totally fine if the answer is like, well, scrap that plan. I'm never going to do that. But if there's
Right.
a part of her that's like, I feel compelled to go to the Leviathan. I want to see what's there. I think Ithaca might still be in the giant somewhere. Because, I mean, it's a gas giant. It pulled it in, but a year later, it could still be in there somewhere. It doesn't have to
Right.
be, it's
Right.
not a black hole, right?
Right.
It it's you know anyway, so it's feeling that out, not like putting her on the spot to say like, hey, are we going to go suit up and fly into Leviathan? Yeah. So
Um, you get the idea that part of her wants to do that, and that part
yeah,
of her thinks that that will make things right, but that a pragmatic soldier in her realizes that that's a horrific risk in
yeah,
wartime.
yeah. So it sounds to me like what I need to do to make that to make her want to do that is to make it give her a good justification, a good pragmatic reason why that actually makes sense, rather than it
Right.
being a wing and a prayer. Let's go on an adventure, sister. Like it's got to be proved out in some way that people could go, oh yeah, that's reasonable, even though
Right.
it's okay. Awesome. Yeah. So, and I think if it's okay with you, I think I just get that from like her expression more than
Oh,
her.
totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. And so getting back to her question, I say, I don't think this war wins us anything. I don't think it. I don't think it's a war worth fighting anymore. But I don't think I can return to brother and tell him that.
No.
At least not yet. So I think I should learn more about this time. Anything you can catch me up on would be so that no one else realizes that I don't know what's going on. Because it
Yeah.
could be really bad if someone realized that I was so unaware of what's happened over the last several
Yeah.
wars.
Yeah. She starts, bringing up news feeds and private communications and mission parameters, and you see the battle where your brother was originally taken prisoner, where you and your kind of void rangers were literally like on the hull of the ship.
Yeah.
And so when they captured it, they didn't know that you and your guys were there, you and your soldiers. And so they captured it, and then you
Sprung
climbed from
a
one ship.
counterattack. Yeah.
Yeah, you counterattacked and won the ship back and destroyed their ship, and he was never taken.
Nice.
And you basically I don't, this tertiary Alexei basically never left his brother's side, and kind of started this new form of warfare where a void rangers a squad of void rangers and a destroyer worked in tandem to really devastating effect, and because you refused to go into battle without him, because you came from the future and told you that you shouldn't leave your brother's side, and
Yeah.
you took that to heart.
Yeah.
um
Yeah. Yeah.
and
And
I
it's still and it still resonates with me. Like when I see it, there's a solemnness and a lament to losing Ithaca and to the war still being going on, but there's like a real like there's a real sense of like I'm so glad I listened to me. Like
Right.
like that's the right thing to do, and it's still the right thing to do. And so yeah, I say um you know uh I
She,
realize I'm probably going to slip, and anytime you can help me, I appreciate. But I need to do what brother needs of us, and
yeah.
I need to be at his side. And hopefully, eventually, I can find a way to tell him about this so he knows too. But I don't think he's in any state right now to hear that the way things are
Yeah.
could have been different.
So there's an interesting thing about this that I like, that when you wrote the character originally, your nickname was Lexi the Lawless, but
Yeah.
there was never any sign of lawlessness other than when you kind of turned pirate.
Yeah. Yeah.
um
Which was a complete like stray from the character. Yeah.
right. And this Alexei 2, let's call him, um, was lawless because he disobeyed orders. Like he refused to take orders that forced that would have made him leave his brother's side.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the problems with Ithaca Station and its knights were that they got divvied up all over the place, and knights in different fronts had different problems, and they didn't respect each other when they came back because they had very different experiences, and some thought that others had it better, and it led to like weird infighting based on which unit you served with.
Yeah.
And that didn't happen because you wouldn't disperse your knights because you were throwing them all around your brother and his like destroyer.
Yeah.
So your nickname, the lawless, uh lives up to its name because you disobeyed your duke a bunch of times and like refused to do things, and but
Yeah.
like you kind of, it was okay because you won a bunch of battles. And then I think another interesting article that she has, amidst this, floating holographic data that's all around you in this office, is a philosophical treatise written by a monk about time travel. And it basically asks the question, when you come back, what happens to that Alexei who you warned? Like, did he get overwritten?
Yeah.
Because he's clearly not here because you don't remember. Like, did you kill him? Like, it's like a whole, there's a like a lot of philosophical, temporal treatises about, what happens to that guy
Yeah.
and to
Yeah.
that entity. and
Did
and
I? Is there a convenient infinite loop of like I reappeared a fraction after the Alexi Prime disappeared, and
right.
so we just create this this loop, or yeah, did I transpose and destroy my former self that I don't know about now?
Right. Or is
Yeah.
he in there somewhere? Like what? And you see like different um experiments that have been done to try to find him and get him out of the prime, to find that entity and get them out of the prime, but it never quite succeeds.
Right. Well, and it
Uh,
also seems like I've created an absolute fixed point in space and time, which is that at a fixed point in space and time, every Alexei has been injured and gone to Messina, and because it's not like what I did, I reappeared back in the past. I reappeared back in the
right.
past in the exact same place as all the changes that had happened.
Yep.
So
Yep.
even though my past was wildly different, I was still had that one point that was exactly the same. That one
Yeah.
fixed
And
point
I
that
think,
everything converged on.
yep. Yep. And I think that's the other thing that you notice is that, as the war went on, you and your brother went to the pirate clans and like brought them into the war.
Oh yeah. Oh, I
And
love
so
it.
like that is, you did go pirate, but you did it during wartime, not during peacetime.
Right.
And you brought them into this mess, and had them going against, yeah,
Yeah.
the
Captain Klaus Shoemaker.
yep.
Yeah. Um, I love it. So is there like a current mission? Is there like a thing that my brother is about to go do? Like is there some imminent threat right now or some imminent mission upon us that like in all the things that she shares is there sort of a
Yeah, I think that's a Rita Sitch.
yeah, yeah, I think that makes total sense. And this time I'm gonna roll leadership though, because this isn't about like me talking to her. This is about me assessing all of this
Yeah.
stuff and figuring out like what needs to
And
happen right now. And it's
yeah.
so weird because like part of me is still goes back to like what needs to happen right now to win the war, but a big part of me is like this fucking war is meaningless. In 10,000 years, everything's fucking like it's so hard for him to care about the war at the moment, even though he cares a ton about his brother and his knights and all that stuff. It's just the war itself. Like, why are we doing this again? Um, and I think it's hard for him to piece that together.
Nice.
But I'm. Oh no, man! I wish this was the game that had XP on misses because I sure get a lot of them. I don't
Nice.
wish that actually. I'm quite content to have our advancement the way it works. But
Yeah. No, no. I
I
don't.
apparently got all my sixes last night or Wednesday night when I
Oh
was
my
rolling my
God, so many
resolve
sixes.
resistances.
4 of 4 in one roll. I mean,
Yes.
I don't want to start like chatting about another game's rolls, but that was
Well, and then
uh,
I rolled another resolve resist, and it was 6 6 5 6. It was like,
oh, I
what?
missed that one. I missed that
Oh
one.
my god! It
I
was,
can very seldom watch like a whole game
yeah.
nowadays.
I can't either.
Uh,
I love when people pop in and say hi, and I do
yeah,
not expect them to stick around. It's
yeah.
totally cool. Yeah.
Uh, that is awesome. And yeah, you failed. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Uh,
On a miss, the Mancy may ask you to ask one anyway, but be prepared for the worst.
yeah.
And it's a may. You may also say, "Fuck right the hell off."
I think this time just doesn't make fucking sense to you. Is what I think this what this shows is that you've taken neurological damage and you're going to have a lot of trouble differentiating and making sense of it.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, because that's what you were trying to do is like understand this era that you've created through your temporal meddling. And I think the
I
sense of,
want to be sensitive to. This was not a character that I originally created who had. I didn't create Alexi with having disabilities in mind, but
okay,
like, so I want to be sent. I don't want to say this flippantly, but I
no, no,
feel
no,
like maybe he has another seizure, not like a horrible one, not like
yeah,
a uh, needs to immediately be hospitalized one, but I think there's a point um, where he's trying to process it,
and he has a
and
small one.
yeah, and it's literally a burst of uncontrolled electrical activity between brain cells, right? Like it's so appropriate to this, and some people have, and I've talked to some people who have had seizures, and they don't all necessarily have physical um, reactions necessarily. So I don't know that it, but I do think that he just sort of freezes for a moment, and like his hand curls and like crawls into a ball, um, and yeah, and it just he doesn't know how much time has passed, and it probably has only been seconds or minutes, but um, I think yeah, he just completely loses like his context of where he is and when he is, and has to like start over, and it's very scary.
Yeah.
Alexi.
Cool. I put a link to a Radio Lab episode called In the Running, which is about an ultra marathon runner who has seizures. And
Mm-hmm.
I just think it's really interesting. And yeah, I listened to it the day before we played our last game. I think like that Friday, I was driving to about 40 minutes for work, and I listened to that episode. So anyway, if you like podcasts and you like science, Radiolab is amazing, and it's probably the best podcast ever, in my estimation. And I don't say that lightly. And yeah, this is just a great one where it's about an ultra marathon runner who has seizures, and she had one that damaged the temporal lobe that helps her. It's a part of the brain that reads maps and makes sense of maps and processes time,
Yeah.
and really really interesting about how that affects how in some ways it makes her a better athlete because she doesn't really
Keep
have a
track
sense
of
of how long she's been running. Anyway, it's great. Check it out. And yeah, it's cool stuff. So yeah, I think um, yeah, you definitely feel it, and do you think you smell something weird? Did you hear weird music? Is there some kind of
Yeah,
sensory
I think
trigger?
I think following the sort of like 70s psychedelic weird color things that we saw
Yeah,
when he was traveling through time and space. I think everything starts getting overexposed in the greenish hue. That means time is afoot. And I think it's like it's like tinnitus, where he just like hears like a whine that grows and grows and grows until it overpowers everything.
cool.
And yeah, externally it looks like he just freezes up and gets really stiff, and kind of like his sort of hand kind of clenches
Yeah,
unnaturally, or in
cool.
a way.
And let's come back to play after we take a break from this, where I think when you come back, the Chimera has been ripped off of its dock and is being pulled into the Leviathan. Um, and you kind of come back uh, from your seizure, and um, the crew is trying to like pull up and pull out of this thing, and uh, you know, klaxons are sounding and red lights are flashing, and we'll start from there.
Nice. Okay, cool. Excellent. Way to make them misses count. Um, I will we'll think of something. And folks, thanks for hanging out with us. We will see you back in about 5.